Hey everyone, welcome to the Unhandled Exception podcast. I'm Dan Clark and this is episode number 42. And today is going to be a fun one, and I'm very excited to be joined by Iris Classon to chat all about her book, The Unlikely Success of a Copy-Paste Developer. So welcome to the show, Iris. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Really been looking forward to this. I read your book recently, and yes, I've been really looking forward to this. Now, I feel I kind of need to give you a proper introduction, but then I started looking at all the stuff you've done, and I felt it would take me an entire podcast to do you justice. But I'm going to try. I'll try. So, Iris is a writer, blogger, plural site author, Microsoft C# MVP, registered clinical dietitian turned software developer, I'm getting tired already. Frequent speakers at conferences such as Tech Days, Scandinavian Developer Conference, and various user groups. Has featured in several newspaper articles, online articles and podcasts such as Hansel Minutes, Computer Sweden, and Developer Magazine. And I know we were talking about it before we were recording. You've recently been on the .NET Core podcast too. And according to your website, you enjoy extreme sports such as barefoot running, mountain biking, weightlifting, scuba diving, and traveling. Wow!
Oh, I need to. It's quite obvious I haven't changed those since I got 2 kids. When I'm running barefoot, it's because I'm chasing my 3-year-old. When I'm scuba diving, it's because he lost our GoPro camera when we're trying our stand-up paddle. And mountain biking, well, it's me chasing him when he's trying to learn to bike. I've gotten into amateur triathlon instead. That's more midlife crisis, age appropriate, I assume. I really need to change. That is so funny. It's so evident that I have now small children, because the stuff I used to do before. I would dream of going to a good club, eat good food, go for a dance. Now the definition for dream night is both the kids are sleeping at 7 o'clock. I'm having a glass of wine and the house is clean and I'm in bed by 9. And I was like, that was an amazing evening. Best I've ever had.
Have you seen there's a comedy sketch by Michael McIntyre where he talks about kids? I'll include it in the show notes because it is so funny. As a stand-up comedian, and he talks about all this stuff, having kids. And
is it funny or is it funny depressive? Because there's this genre of funny depressive parenting comedy where you're laughing but crying at the same time.
It's very relatable.
I am actually writing one book, which is not about programming. It's also comedy, and it is about parent life. It's called When Sarah Found Her Superpower. It's about a mom who discovers she's a superhero. She has a now not secret superpower and that she can find anything. So she starts her own business and everybody hires her to find things. And it's all fun until a child disappears though. But it might be based off my personal experience with always having to look for things or memorize where they are.
I was going to say, can find anything says no parent ever.
Yeah, okay, what did you put that? Oh, there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny with how kids change your life, because before kids for me, I've done various different sports. So quite heavily into motorbiking for quite a few years. I did skydiving every weekend. And then I had kids, and now I host a podcast. What's happened there then?
Yeah. And you go camping.
Yes. And play the guitar. We were saying beforehand, we've both got guitars in the background, and that seems to be quite a common theme, actually.
Yeah, I'm slowly turning into my parents.
I know. I start using phrases that my dad would use, and it's oh, hang on.
Yeah, but with the guitar, that's is that a thing? Is that a programmer thing with the guitar?
It's surprising how many programmers I speak to on the podcast or just in general, with work, who have a guitar in the background and play the guitar. There seems to be some correlation.
Maybe there's a correlation with typing speed and playing the guitar. I don't know. You've gotten really good at typing on your keyboard, and you go oh, maybe this is transferable to my guitar, or the other way around. I don't know. No, probably not. That's a stupid idea.
Programmers like to learn and get better in things, and they're quite inquisitive about, here's a technology or something where I can actually sit down and learn it and get better at it. And instruments are the same. Yeah,
but why not keyboard? You can't see it now. I'll show you. I have a keyboard in front of me.
Oh, wow.
I don't play. It's not mine.
That's awesome.
My New Year's resolution is to learn to play the guitar like properly and the piano or the keyboard. I haven't started yet.
That's very cool. It's funny how, like I was showing you before, like, well, the listeners can't see this, but I've got my normal keyboard, not instrument keyboard, but then I've got this mixing device, which I've only recently got, but it's so much fun because I can do all sorts of funny stuff like...
Make my voice sound like this and like a chipmunk.
Or I can be really echoey like this. Or I can sound like a robot. So it's pretty cool, quite good fun. So I've been having lots of fun with that at work.
Maybe I should use something like that for the audiobook.
Looking again at your website, and at the end it does say that your motto is, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're probably right. And I think that was such a good tip to end your about page on.
Yeah.
So have I actually missed anything in your intro?
Except that I don't do extreme sports anymore. I'm still extreme, but in different ways. Like we use cloth diapers. No, we're not. Let's not talk more about kids. But I don't know. My life is also like super busy. So yeah, got married for the second time. I'm gonna stop with that now. I think 2 husbands is enough. Got my driver's license at nearly 40, so that's something to celebrate. Bought a house in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, that was last year, and I published 3 books.
Wow, that was last year.
That was last year. I'm on track. I've got 3 books due this year as well. 3 or 4, depends on. Yeah, I have an 8-month-old at home, so obviously he's gonna slow me down, little bugger.
Well, I quite liked it in your preface for the book. I hope you don't mind me quoting it, but you said, "And thus this book was written with a voice to text on my phone as I walked for hours with my strong personality child at night when he ought to be sleeping." Yeah. So I think that kind of says it all, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, and then I edited the book while I was feeding my second son, like every 2-hour feeds when he was newborn. I was with my phone. He's such a slow eater, so on my phone, like edited, so I wouldn't fall asleep and drown the child, you know. So yeah.
I did like it also in the preface of the book. Even before we actually got to the main story, I was like laughing and relating because it was quite funny. Where you said that your husband had bought you a spa day, and you basically said you used it to work on the book.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of, it was just a month or so ago, actually, I went on holiday and both my wife and I had a spa day, but because of the kids, we went separately. And I've got to be honest, it's embarrassing, but I spent a lot of that spa day in the cafe with a coffee with my laptop, just doing code and stuff.
Yeah, but that's the thing, like getting time to just do your own thing. Yeah, it was so funny. My husband, he got his own a weekend for himself. He went to Malmö. He was going to a festival, and I was like, "Oh shit, you're gonna go like drinking and partying, you know, and listening to like I think it was like Bad Religion and stuff like that, like good old music, you know." He's got like everybody. When I asked him if he was up late, he was like, "No, everybody was back at the hotel by 11 and in bed." And apparently, the middle age the average age was like 40. There was only a bunch of 40-year-old dads wearing their old band T-shirts, and then everybody's like, "I guess we should go to bed now." And it was done like 10:30. And I was worried he would go like on a like binge drinking for 2 days, but no, he was in bed earlier than me.
We both go to bed at 9:30. Like we just get the kids to bed, we come down for a little bit to watch a bit of telly, but then we kind of go up at about 9:30. And I think before kids, when we used to go out and come back in the middle, like early in the morning and everything.
Yeah, I can't do that. But I've turned into a morning person. Unfortunately, I'm also an evening person. I want to stay up late and wake up super early, so... But now with the writing, I just write whenever I can. And when people ask me, "Oh, how do you find time to write?" Everybody wants to write a book. And I think good, because everybody has at least one story to tell. And I'd love to read or listen to that story. But then people say, I don't have time. But you do have time. But you're probably going to struggle to find time. Like, I'm going to sit down just for a week, lock myself up in a cabin, and I'm just going to write, you know. Even if you were to get that week, you'll just sit down and go like, I don't know what to write, you know. So you write whenever you can. Like you're gonna catch the bus, you're on the train, you just write some notes on your phone. You're in the bathroom, trying to escape your kids, you write some notes. Use text to speech to listen to what you've written, and you use voice to text to write, which works surprisingly well depending on what you use. I've actually used Azure for that, and it's good. It's really good. It's scary good, actually.
So was that just the built-in cognitive services in Azure?
So I've done a mixture. So I've obviously used in Word, which works quite well. But what I've also done is when I'm driving, I don't want to be distracted when I'm driving. So I'll just record an audio for the whole drive. And I'll just use like a loud clap if I'm stuck in traffic, or I'll just like yell, which must look really funny, just to have like an audio spike so I can see where I cut the audio. Or if you have an iPhone, or a lot of apps have like built-in that they will remove like long silent breaks. So I just talk, then I upload the audio, and I've used Azure Cognitive Services without any, like I haven't given any grammar file or anything in particular. Sometimes I'll add a couple of words like Swedish names, so it will know how to interpret those correctly. And it worked really well, even with adding in like commas and punctuation and so on, which can be a little bit of a pain if you just use Word or any dictation app. Usually you have to say blah, 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 comma, blah, 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 which doesn't really work when you're driving. But then I discovered that obviously I write much better than I speak. If that's comfort for anybody who is considering buying the book, my book is better than this. I use a lot of glue words when I talk, and I never thought about that. So glue words are not real words that don't add any value, and I use a lot of those, and that's very embarrassing. So I use a plugin for Word called Pro Writing Aid, which is really good, and I really recommend this to people who like to write. It's like Grammarly, but much, much better. And you can do different types of analysis, and the glue word analysis is one of those that have been quite good for me to realize that I need to work on my verbal oral skills.
Because of doing the podcast editing, when I'm editing, I've trained my ear to listen for glue words, and I can't hear many from what you're saying. But editing the podcast, some episodes take forever to, like all the ums and ahs, because I get rid of them all and tidy it up. Some of those take forever. I would give yourself credit. You're not doing many glue words at all here.
Yeah, no, the ums and ahs are gone, because Pluralsight they were really hard on that, like no, and it's super annoying to listen to. Plus, you have to be very good, like when you edit, you can't completely remove them, because it sounds inhuman if you remove them completely. So you just got to find like a nice balance, and it's a lot of work editing audio. So I try really hard not to and ah. But there are some people that feel like they have to have like this continuous sound coming out of them when they're talking, like no, this and I don't like that.
Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know, as I say, it's kind of because I train myself to hear it, I just hear them all over the show now. So I've been trying to train myself. Sorry, we're going to go back to kids now again, just briefly. But I've been trying to stop myself from umming and ahhing just to make my editing easier for myself as well. And also when I do talks. And so my youngest, who's 6, if I've said to both of them, you're not allowed to interrupt in general, but if you hear me say the word you have my permission to interrupt. So they both did that for a bit, but my youngest has taken it to the extreme. It's like, but it's brilliant though, because it's helping me. So I'm slowly, every time I edit an episode now, I can hear that I'm doing it less and less. But yeah, it's a bit full on with it. It's like, don't say You just shout in a 6-year-old voice, like really high pitched. It's so funny.
Yeah, maybe I should try something like that.
So before we start talking more about the book, I've realised we've not done this episode's listener mention. So this one goes out to Steve Collins, who tweeted out, "Hey Drakan." So Drakan's me on Twitter. "Hey Drakan, I got this T-shirt at DGD Southwest, and it reminded me of our Unhandled Exception podcast recording that ended in fits and giggles. And the photo in his tweet is a T-shirt with code showing a class called Highlander that implements the singleton pattern. And for those that haven't seen the film, it's a reference to the phrase, 'There can be only one.'" I do like those effects. They're awesome. So thank you, Steve. I was actually gutted I couldn't attend the DGD South West conference this year. I had tickets, but then I had to cancel it. So I was really looking forward to catching up with everyone. And if you want to get mentioned on the show, just send a tweet using hashtag #UnhandledException. All feedback is greatly appreciated. And I'm Dracan on Twitter, which is DRACAN. And a quick reminder that this podcast is sponsored by Everstack, which is my own company providing software development and consultation services. For more information, visit everstack.com. And also, very new, just in case you don't already have enough Slack workspaces already, I've created one for the podcast. So basically a place for listeners to hang out and chat about both the episodes and also just software development in general. So to sign up, pop over to the website unhandledexceptionpodcast.com and you'll see a big shiny new Slack link. So hopefully see you in there. So let's talk about Martin the dentist. I mean the book.
It's so funny you mentioned Martin because he wasn't supposed to be one of the main characters, but he's very popular. He's so popular that I'm actually updating the blurb. The blurb is like the description of the book on the back of the book to mention him, to give him an honorable mention because he is very, very popular. I can envision like T-shirts with Martin the dentist on. So yeah.
I just loved, before I started reading the book, you just on Twitter sent me a message saying, just remember, Martin the dentist is real.
Yeah.
So that I'll bear that in mind throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, I'm so happy I live in Sweden where you don't really sue people. So like my previous dentist is is probably not going to sue me for sharing the stories. It's like 99% real. The only two things I made up is the tunic. And I was drenched. The tunic, because I got a towel instead. And the second part was I still don't know what happened to the molds and why he made so many.
Can I read out a few little snippets just to give some context to the listeners?
Yeah.
And I think this is going to probably intrigue the listeners into reading the book.
I guess we can say that Martin is Leo's dentist. And he has a dental kink, which I actually didn't know was a thing. Somebody told me that. He has a dental kink and is obsessed with Leo's teeth.
Yeah, so one of the quotes I've got here is, somewhere out there is a dentist with a dental mould and a photo album of her teeth. And with that thought, Plowhite biked home, amused, intrigued, and a little bit worried.
Yeah.
But then there's a few others like, I'm half naked in my dentist's office. He's my sugar dentist. So some of these quotes are so funny.
Yeah, well, in real life, I was not half naked, but I was drenched. And he gave me a towel so I could cover myself. I was like, well, I guess we're doing this. My husband actually wanted me to change dentist because I actually miss him. I don't know what it is, but I guess I like the attention. He's a good dentist. He is.
I was going to ask you about what your husband thought about all this, but
he's a very patient guy. But he's like, no, and obviously the dentist has a different name. It's not Martin. But yeah, everything there actually did happen. I have the emails to prove it. I don't know why I always run into crazy people or end up in super strange situations. It makes it easier to write books. Now we did accidentally, we did say her, and I don't know if listeners, if you notice that we're are we supposed to do this or not? Because the thing is that Leo's gender has been kept secret until quite a few chapters in, I think chapter 6 or 7. I've decided to reveal Leo's gender in this podcast because it's really hard to record a podcast and not reveal the gender. I've managed to do 2 podcasts so far, but it's really hard and makes editing really, really difficult. Plus, there are reviews out there and screenshots now that reveal it anyway, so it's done on purpose. It's done to mess with people's head a little bit, and it does play with gender stereotypes a lot, so it is done on purpose. And I think it's still fun to read the book knowing that, because then you do notice how it's purposefully hidden.
I don't think it was that many chapters in.
I hope so. I've tried really hard, but my editor kept going back in and changing the name to her, and I was like, "No, we're not supposed to do that," you know. Yeah, my editor hated me for that.
Yeah, because I kind of like imagine, like if I'm reading fiction, I kind of like visualize the characters, and not because of software development, but more because the name Leo it's normally a male name. So I kind of in my head it was a male developer, but then I'm sure it was the second chapter or something, because I then went back and reread it so I could visualize knowing that it was not the character I was imagining. So I don't think it was that far in, but we can check later. But
yeah, I'll double check that, because I did like a search for her and she, just to make sure I didn't have a slip up anywhere. But yeah, that was hard. Might have, hopefully I didn't. I'll have to double check. The two next books, though, does reveal her gender from the start, because I can only write one book without making it sound super awkward, not saying she or her.
Are these books intended to be read in order, or do they carry on?
This is the first book, The Unlikely Success. And then the next book is actually a prequel, but it's the second book. And it's when Leo is studying. And that's also based on a lot of the fun stories from when I was studying software development. And then the third book is in the future. I don't have a set name yet, but it's something along the Great Merge. So the company she works for is acquired, and then they acquire more companies, and then they decide to do the impossible, which is to merge all these different softwares into one, which I'm sure a lot of people have had that experience. This is what's happening at my current workplace. So a lot of inspiration is, as always, from real life. A copy-paste developer is born, is due July, August, and soon done with the first draft. And then the other one is due in November. The audiobooks, I don't have any dates for that yet, though. I'm currently having the audiobook made for this book.
If you need any proof listeners, because I can't wait to read the next bit, because I really enjoyed the book, so I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, just as soon as I finished the first book, I had so many ask for the next book. Like, when's the next one? It's like, oh shit, I need to hurry up. So I'm trying to keep a good pace so people know. And this is a series, so it's going to continue, because the stories are, as long as I work as a software developer, there will always going to be crazy, funny stories and characters. And that's sort of the premise of my book, right?
So when do we get the movie?
Oh, I don't know. It would work quite well as a Netflix series, actually, I think. I think it would work better as a series than as a movie, because the stories are, like, some of them are so crazy that it'll just be too much as a movie.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of stuff that I feel I can just really relate to so many of the things in that. And I think that's part of the fun of the book, because it's a very light-hearted book, so I'm assuming it's meant to be fun, but it's very fun to read, and I can relate to it, but it's very enjoyable. A nice, easy read, but very enjoyable.
Yeah, I think somebody said, so I've gotten like the good reviews, and then I had my first 1-star review, and I'm going to pull it up because it's so funny how they described it. So this is my only 1-star review. I do appreciate that the person actually wrote out their opinion. Blah, 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 blah. The main character is made to look good because she is surrounded by idiots. And I was thinking, like, but that's not my fault. I work with idiots. No. So here's the thing, obviously, because I'm writing a funny book. A lot of people ask me, is your husband in the book? And I was like, no, because the book is about idiots and my husband is not one of them. So, and neither was my ex-husband, so he's not in it either. But I might have an ex-boyfriend in the book, though. So, yeah, I did pick idiots on purpose because nobody wants to read a book about completely normal, plain people. That's not the point of the book. And then the book was described as very cringy, in particular because it was inspired by my life. And I have to admit that my life is cringy, and I love it. I love a cringy life, and it makes it funny as well. So there's a bit of cringe humor in it, and it is on purpose. Like, parts of the book are meant to make you cringe. You go like, no, she didn't. No, he's not doing that. Is he? Oh, he just did that. That's on purpose.
We've all done that, though, haven't we?
Yeah.
We've all been in those scenarios where we've done something, pressed enter, and time goes in slow motion when it's like, no, I did not just accidentally do that. So that's why it's so relatable as well.
I do believe that some people didn't like sort of the gender switch a few chapters in, and I wonder if that's why this review. I'm curious. Like I haven't. Yeah, I don't know this person who wrote it, but it's yeah.
Yeah, I think when you put something out on the internet, there's always those people. So I would seriously ignore reviews like that. I think you did say at the start of the recording that based on a Twitter thread about that, you got some extra purchases. So I guess he's done you a favor in some way.
No, I genuinely appreciate the review, and it is also a sort of a funny review. And I don't mind. I mind it when people just give it a low rating and they don't say why. And by low, I mean 1 or 2 star, because 3 is perfectly good. That's like, yeah, decent book, and that's good enough for me. But if a person actually sits down and writes a review, that's thank you for spending time to give feedback. Whether person who wrote the 1-star review in particularly didn't like the dentist parts, and Martin's been so popular. So I tweeted about this, and then a lot of people went and bought the book because they wanted to read about the dentist. So it had there's no such thing as bad PR, right?
I think that's it. I think I saw that tweet and someone replied saying that this is making me want to get the book anyway. So.
Yeah. And it is cringy at times. I think the cringe maybe is referring to the farewell cake. Oh no, maybe I shouldn't reveal that. No, I'm not. I can't reveal that. So 90-something% of the book is based on true stories. So you can pick any scene and ask me, and I'll tell you the real story behind it. So with the fired, I wasn't fired. I quit. But I was thanked for my boss decided like last minute to have a farewell party for me, which everybody else got like a big farewell party. But for me, he just bought in 3 muffins that 12 people were supposed to share. And then he said, well, I can't believe you worked here for almost 2 years. And I was like, I've worked here for 5. And then he was like, I can't believe you worked here almost as long as Jonas. And I was like, I hired Jonas. Like, he's my best friend. I got him hired after I worked here for 2.5 years old. So that was like the funny part, that he was like so insistent. I only worked there for 2 years, but I worked for 5 years. And we're a team of 4 people, like 4 or 5 people. So, plus he was also my ex-boyfriend. So, I mean, we've been in a relationship from before I started working there. So he should know. So that was a funny story. Like when he said, thank you for your 2 years of service. I was like, it's actually 5.
Oh, dear. Speaking of stories, so before I mention this one, because I found this part of the book very funny because of your appearance on the .NET Core podcast. So first, I'm just going to give a quick shout out to that. So you've recently been on the .NET Core podcast, and I am a huge fan of listening to different podcasts. But because they're technology related, there aren't many episodes which actually literally make me laugh out loud, and that did. It was like such a fun episode, and that caused me to go out and buy the book, which I obviously thoroughly enjoyed. So I want to say thank you to both you and Jamie for that. But one bit that you and Jamie were both talking about, one of the stories, I got to in the book, and it just reminded me of that podcast episode. And I just read the quote. Michael was quiet, scrolling up and down, looking busy. I just wouldn't do that. It's smelly. And then as soon as I read that, it reminded me of you telling the story on Jamie's podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, I had the pleasure to do a lot of technical interviews. It's just some candidates are really interesting. So yeah, that Michael was a character that was built from different people I've interviewed over the years. People who talk the talk but don't walk the walk. And we had an interview with a guy who was always talking about solid code smells. He's like internalized a pragmatic programmer. He sleeps with it under his pillow. He's got one in each room instead of So he lives and breathes the pragmatic programmer book, but doesn't really understand the content of it. And it's like, well, we had a method which was static. It's like, oh, what is that? It's like, it's a method. But that, and then he points. It's like static. It's like, it's a static method. Yeah, it's modifier. It's like, oh, it's smelly. It's like, what do you mean smell? It's like, oh, no, code smell. And it's like, okay, what's a code smell? He's like, smelly code. And it's like, yeah, no shit, Sherlock. And we try to get him to explain. There are a lot of good answers you can give in regards to static methods. And particularly 5 years ago, static methods are more popular now than they were a few years ago. But nonetheless, there are a lot of adequate answers you can give in regards to why you wouldn't want to use static methods, in particular in our class, because that made no sense. It was static. But he couldn't verbalize why, And then we tried to ask me, well, can you think of a reason why a method would be sometimes static? He's like, no. Never. It's like, okay, gee, man, you're being a bit dramatic, aren't you? Thank God for pull requests, right? And then I asked him, so what would you do? Not static. I was like, okay, so what would you do? Trying so hard to get like just give me an answer. And I was like, I would remove it. And I was like, just remove it? Because there were like some static properties as well, and he was like, he would just remove static everywhere, like search and replace. And I was like, okay, do you think that might have consequences? He's like, yes, it would make the code better. I was like, oh, no.
Less smelly.
Less smelly. And I was trying, I didn't laugh, but somewhere it's so absurd. It was like, this is a prank. There's a camera somewhere, right? And Michael also is asked about performance, how he does performance. And then he apparently uses the timer on his phone. And you'd think that's a weird thing. No. I had this in an interview as well. He actually pulled up his old Android phone. Like, look, I'm just going to find the app. Oh, there we go. So yeah, I click start. It shows me like the phone and it ticks. And I was like, yeah, and then what? And then when the program is done loading, I click stop. And I was like, okay, and then what? I was like, then I can see if it's slow. I was like, because I was saying, like, how do you do performance measuring? And that was seriously how he did his profiling. Like, he would start and click stop on his phone. He was very proud as he showed me. I was like, okay, I know you used to be a Delphi programmer, but I'm pretty sure you had other tools back then as well. So yeah, or he would go by feeling. It's like, it's a bit hard doing a benchmark. You go like, it feels faster today, doesn't it? Yeah, deploy. So yeah, I was just, I hope I'm not mocking or making fun of people. I just like taking these stories and just exaggerating them just a little bit, and then it's a bit more fun. And I've done things like that myself, and it's in the book. I'm not pretending. Like the review said, like, makes herself look better. I don't think Leo doesn't sound like a particularly amazing person in the book, to be honest. Nobody does. Maybe James. I don't know. James is kind of fun and enthusiastic and so on, but he's a bit of an idiot as well. So yeah, we all are. We're developers, aren't we? Like on a bad day, it does feel like I am surrounded by idiots, and I am one of them. Like, feel like we're just a bunch of morons and we have no idea what we're doing. And then you get the occasional, wow, we are amazing. We've done great things. But I spent 90% of my time feeling like an idiot, and then 10% feeling like, yeah.
The biggest idiot is the person that wrote that code last week, and then I look at it and it's actually me. And
yeah.
Normally it's that way around. Who wrote this? Oh, to get blame. Oh, no.
Yeah.
So you mentioned about James. Are we allowed to talk about the different characters? Is that okay?
Yeah.
I do like James because like he runs a user group and I run a user group, so it's kind of, I suppose out of all the characters, I'm probably the closest I can relate to. But there's one bit where there's another person, I think I'm pronouncing Meron, is that how you pronounce it?
I'm not sure.
It's spelled like Meron anyway. And they run the user group together, and James has organised an event, and he talks about what the topic is, and Meron's like visibly upset. And so it's like, today's topic, deadlocks, threads, and parallelism. And then Meron goes, they are 14 years old, James. And that made me laugh.
Yeah, the story is that Meron is like sort of a high achiever type of guy who just wants best practices, best everything, wants to replace the front end every 2 weeks when a new library is more popular. And then he has this user group for basically kids. And in his world, threading is like nothing. You know, everybody knows that, and it's good to start early, but maybe not for 14-year-olds. And he has this conversation with the guy about threading, and the kid is talking about like covers, like duvets. It's like the optimal thread count and Egyptian cotton, you know. And James is talking about programming threading, and this confusion as to what they're supposed to do. Yeah.
Oh, so funny. But out of all the characters, David.
David.
Is David a real person?
He is a real person. He is. He is, and David knows he's David. I don't think he's read the book, but if he reads the book, he's probably gonna love David. That's the thing. Like, he's gonna go like, yeah, I like David. Yeah.
One quote from him: "I don't sweat, I sparkle."
Yes.
I think that kind of like says it all, really. It's
yeah, exactly. He's like slightly narcissistic tendencies and quite self-absorbed. So David is Leo's boss, and he's a know-it-all and a jack of all trades. There is a Jack, but he's not Jack. He's a self-proclaimed expert in everything. He's the type of guy who'll listen to like a conference session, come back home and do like conference-driven development, as it's called. So he accidentally ends up at an agile conference, comes back home and declares that he's Scrum Master and wants to implement different types of agile methodologies without really understanding them. And one of them is using Pomodoro, and then locks everybody's computers for in between play. So yeah, David is an interesting character. I hope he comes across as quite annoying, because he's annoying but at the same time intriguing, charismatic, and very unforgettable.
So the Agile conference, there's again things you can relate to, like where you're saying that I came away saying Agile is a must for software companies. You don't have to actually be Agile. Claiming that you are is good enough. I think every company I've worked for is kind of like fits into that category. But then I guess the other bit where he's claiming credit for Leo's work.
Yeah.
That then is like, yeah, that's really annoying. But that's David, isn't it?
Yeah, it's funny. He's claiming that he did all the work, but he doesn't know what she did, and what she actually did was pretty bad. So, yeah.
Are we allowed to talk about what she did, or is that too much of a...
No, we can't. I mean, there are so many plot turns and twists, and the story is not about the stories, if that makes sense. So yeah, she accidentally does a... I hope I'm not going to be sued for this. She GitLabs the service. If anybody can remember, quite a few years ago, somebody at GitLab accidentally, on the wrong server, did a recursive delete and wiped the servers. And they spent days recovering, because I think the recovery plan failed. And I don't know, they really struggled. And they live streamed everything, which was really cool. And people were cheering them on. And they came out on the other side like heroes. So I really liked that. But I like to turn to GitLab a server. So she does a similar thing. She accidentally uploads the credentials and panics. So she tries to delete the files, forgets the filter, does a recursive delete, a bit distraught, and doesn't see it until it's too late.
So she deletes a bit too much, not just the credentials.
Yes.
I think this was what you and Jamie were talking about this in his podcast, but that's kind of what happens when you make a mistake. You're not in your normal state of mind when you try and fix it, and that's when you make the second mistake.
Yeah, you panic. And it's usually way worse. And we talked about kids, you can see with kids doing that, like they do a massive F up, and then they try to clean up the F up, like they spill a little bit of milk and they try to clean it, and then everything, the plate is on the floor, there's a hole in the wall, and somebody broke the window. Like, how did it happen? I was just getting paper. Yeah.
I'm just spreading this milk around all over the floor. And
yeah.
Been there, done that. Not me, the kids. I probably did when I was a kid as well.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, have I wiped the server? No, I have pushed to master, I have. Because I did that like 2 months ago. I thought I created a branch, but yeah. I created the branch and then I wasn't in the right directory, so I was in sort of the wrong repository. And then when I went to the right directory, it switched the branch. I didn't notice. I made a change. I just pushed and go like, oh. So I just wrote in the team channel, hey, so I did some testing today and we can push directly to master. They go like, oh shit, you're not supposed to be able to do that. we need to change the setting on the repo. I was like, yeah, good, I tested. How did you test? Like, well, the new feature I was adding, So, yeah.
It's interesting though. This really relates to Leo's problem, where it's something that people make mistakes, and she did that by accident. You did that push by accident. But if the company setup, the policies in place, how it's set up, allow you to do that. For example, if Leo could GitLab a production server, is that her fault, or is that should that be actually permission denied?
And that's because GitLab never fired anybody, because they said, well, that's on us.
Yeah.
And I think that's the right attitude, and I really like that. So I actually have a more positive to GitLab after the happening than before. Always liked them though, so it's just a plus. But yeah, that's one of the sort of the sub-themes. Like, Leo's workplace isn't the best, and there's a lot of blaming going on. And blame culture never leads to anything good. And every company, every team should have a discussion regarding the culture in terms of pull requests. Most companies use pull requests nowadays, and a conversation regarding blame and ownership is really important. My previous workplace had the attitude that whoever pushes is to blame, and you got to make sure it's right from the start, sort of attitude. And if you F up, that's on you. Which always made it so stressful to even particularly if you had to do a hot fix or something like that, something time sensitive. So I really like it at my new workplace, Power Factors, that we own the code and the merges together, all the pull requests. We do it together, even though one person or two usually do the coding.
I think that's it. It's like, you are not the code you write anyway. But also at my current client, a team I'm working with, we've actually very recently had this discussion about PRs, because we jump backwards and forwards between pushing to main or using PRs. This is like a new greenfield project, which is it's not in production anyway, but we are making sure it's got very good test coverage. So we're kind of like going backwards and forwards. PRs are really slowing us down, and it's, for the reviewer, it's constant interruptions when you're trying to get on with your own work. But they do actually, improvements come out of the PRs. So it's kind of like pros and cons, which is better. Are we better to ensure that we've got the proper test coverage? But a part of this story is that as a reviewer, when you're providing feedback, the whole purpose of you looking at that PR is to provide feedback. So that's kind of easy. If it's in main and it's not broken any tests, so it's still working, but maybe it could be refactored better. In some way, that's harder to say to the other person, this could be done better once it's in main.
Yeah, but that's, I think, that there are a few camps in terms of pull requests. There's something called optimistic merging. I think it's called, where you have the attitude that if it works, then you merge it. And you skip sort of the neat picking and stuff like that. And then there's the other camp who go like, well, if it can be better, it can be improved, it should be. And there are like pros and cons with both approaches. And it's important in a team to have this discussion so you agree on what the definition of done is. So yeah, we ended up having an agreement, I think, somewhere in between, but mostly towards optimistic merging. So if it's just styling and it doesn't break any of the standards we decided upon, then merge it, just get it done.
Yeah, we've kind of followed the same kind of end decision really, and in that case it's okay to push to main. We've kind of agreed because we're finding that all our PRs were triggering PR builds to run all the tests and everything, which is fine if it's changing the code, but sometimes I might be pushing a README change or a DevOps change that wouldn't actually have anything to do with the build and tests, and it was really frustrating doing that and having to wait for all the builds and all that kind of stuff to happen. So we kind of like met in the middle and said, well, okay, so we've got good test coverage. We're all kind of like quite sensible developers, so we're going to trust each other. And it's not live, so if it goes in and there's something wrong, then as you said, it's not a blame culture.
Yeah, but it's quite easy to end up with a blame culture, and it's sort of downhill from there, because then everybody's like, okay, I guess everybody has to fend for themselves. And once you start getting defensive, you're not taking in any feedback, and it's just. I did work in a team where there was so much feedback that every pull request would take over a week to merge, and it'll be like, oh well, I usually have like an empty line above this method. You know, it was like at that level. And I was like, well, if it's not in our style guides, like, why do we... It was just getting like, oh, I would name this variable this, you know. And I just said, just do it then, just change the name, you know. Just it takes longer. But there was also another discussion we had with our team, if it's okay to jump in somebody else's issue and make changes. I'm actually fine with it as long as somebody doesn't like completely rewrite what I just did without talking to me. But like minor changes, like I'm going, oh yeah, I just added a couple of tests. I go like, oh yeah, thanks. I don't mind. I mean, it's our code, right?
I wish people would do that with my PRs. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, it's usually me go like, oh, I can add more tests. I write test driven, so I'm very used to writing tests. I can very fast come up with tests, and I have a lot of templates that I use that I've made myself, and I'm very familiar with tests. So I'm more than happy to add tests.
Yeah, I think with PRs it's kind of, well, I suppose I've got a few thoughts with PRs, and one of them is if you've got a comment thread, which is going back and forth, jump on a call. It's just easier, jump on a call, and it's just so much easier to sort. So I think that's one big one, because I've seen that a lot of times where it sucks so much time off both parties because and a phone call, a Teams call or whatever would just resolve it in 10 minutes.
Yeah, I had that when I was in the team with the endless pull requests. I was like, well, I would do it like this. I was like, yeah, but I wouldn't. Yeah, but I would. Yeah, but I wouldn't. But I would. Yeah, but I'm not going to. But I think she should. But I'm not going to. Like, I seriously screenshot the conversations like, you know, and at some point I just kept going at it because it was fun. I was like, oh, I'm saving this for the next book. You know?
I was about to say that feels like it needs to go in one of these books.
I've gotten a lot of the stories from my colleagues. I'll ask them, like, can I add this to the book? And go like, yeah, please do. Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. So if we go back to Leo, some of the things that I just really enjoyed was there was one chapter that started, and it was talking about what a perfect day of programming would look like in Leo's life. And that was just brilliant. Near the end, it was like, and right before midnight, before her constant flow of energy ebbs out, she does a pull and a rebase, and there are no conflicts. And everything she wrote that day just works.
Yeah.
There was a couple of pages where it was just all like dreamy. And
I have a T-shirt that says, Git merge, no conflicts. Today was a good day, or something like that.
Oh, I want that T-shirt.
Yeah. Perfect day of code. It's been a while since I've had one of those.
Is that because of the kids? Oh, so I'm going back to kids again, aren't I?
Yeah. Actually, it is, and I really miss those days where I could code from morning to night. But also because I'm not working for a startup anymore, and it's like I actually miss working for the startup. It was a complete and utter mess, and I was only senior developer, so a lot of responsibility and not anybody. I didn't have anybody to discuss ideas and stuff with, so it was a bit scary as well. But I could code from morning to night and still have stuff to do in the morning and just code. And now I'll look at my calendar, and I work for a really large company after quite a few acquisitions, and everything is more structured, proper. We have ways to do things, best practices, and we do have micro teams and all that. It's good, but with that also comes a lot of sort of bureaucracy and a lot of meetings. Like I have Tuesdays, can be 6 hours of meetings. And it's very rare I get a full day where I just code and nobody disturbs me, because we're also supposed to collaborate. And I love my colleagues, but I do also really love just sitting by myself with music and just code. And I miss that. I honestly miss that. But I don't miss the mess that comes with it. So it's sort of like, you know, getting the no responsibilities and freedom you had as a teenager, but at the same time you don't have like money an apartment or a structure, you know, and then you're like, yes, I'm finally an adult, and you go, oh, I have responsibilities now, I can't do what I want to do. So I think it's more about that.
I think it's also like just finding the right company, because I'm a contractor, so I work with different companies, and I've worked with small startup companies, and I've worked with much bigger companies, and I'm totally with you on that. It's like much bigger companies where you've got all the bureaucracy and politics and.
Yeah, because usually like we have so many teams and we have to synchronize and we need to talk across teams. So obviously like we don't have any meaningless meetings, but they still take time from, coding.
Yeah. Or you can't use this software because it's got to be vetted for compliance and everything. And it's just a tool.
Oh, we don't have that. I'm so happy about that. We actually do get to decide tools and stuff ourselves. But I have worked, I think when I worked for Line, or was it Volvo? I was insane. Like, I remember this was like before the cloud, before everybody started using the cloud anyways. And I needed to set up a build server. Yeah. And applying for build server was half a year. So I ended up using my own personal server to build like a client's software. And then I just let them keep it and they just transferred the resources when I left. But it was half a year to get a server. It was insane, like the process, the people you have to go through. We don't have that now. We have our own accounts to log in and set up stuff if we want to play around. But we do have a budget to stick to. With the startup, we didn't have a budget, so we ran over budget. And how do you run over budget when you don't have a budget? Well, that means you go broke. Like we suddenly got a bill for so much money. We had to contact Azure support and go like, so I know we effed up, but could you please just overlook the fact we forgot to remove the disks when we deleted our VMs? Yeah.
Did that work? Just for future reference?
Yeah. Actually, they did. Yeah, they did. And I've done that a couple of times. Azure support is. I know not everybody has the same experience, but for me, Azure support is the best support experience I've ever had. Yeah. Yeah, I think everybody can relate to forgetting to delete resources. The cloud is easy, but also a little bit too easy to set up new things. And you don't know what's going to set up in the background. Like, I'm a software developer. I don't know, hardware. Yeah, whatever. Yeah. Add that, bridge something. I don't know. And then when you delete it, you just assume it's going to take all the resources, but it doesn't.
For this demo, I'm just going to spin up, like very quickly, click, this Kubernetes cluster with many nodes. And then a month later, you get the bill and it's like,
Okay, would you like to pay as you go? It's like, yeah, sure.
That was just a 10-minute lightning talk.
Yeah, I think I did that when DocumentDB came out. I held Azure Boot Camp and I set up DocumentDB so people could play around with it. And I forgot to delete it and I just let it spin. And then I had set up budget alerts because I only did it to demonstrate how to set up budget alerts. And I was so happy I did that because I went so over budget. And it was tied to a credit card, so it's not like I would have noticed anytime soon without the alerts.
Just talking about relatable stuff and then looking at the list of quotes that jumped out to me as I read the book. There was one bit where you were talking about her ergonomic chair that required 3 YouTube videos to figure it out and use, but totally worth it. And it was funny, as I read that, about a week earlier, I invested in this chair, a Herman Miller one, and literally, I'd just been watching a ton of YouTube videos about how to adjust it. And then I got to this bit in the book and read that, and it was like, is that another story from your side?
Yeah, but I mean, okay, back to the kids again. I think we've spent a week trying to fold a UV tent together again. You know, the new type of tents that sort of just pop up?
Oh, tent, yeah.
Tent, sorry, yeah. They're impossible to twist back into place. So I think even the simplest things, is just everything requires a YouTube video nowadays or a TikTok video. I don't know. I guess TikTok video would be like instructions with a dance or something. Like a half-naked person doing a dance, showing instructions. That would be like TikTok. The chair story is a true story. It was my colleague Ben when he started at Greenbyte. So he was told that they have this team building exercise where you get a chair and you have to build it together. So they got an overly complicated chair they had to build together. Yeah, they talked about the chair and just made it a really big thing. And then he comes to work first day and the chair is already built. One of his colleagues go we never do that. They always come pre-assembled.
Oh, that's just the HR team. And
yeah, it's just HR likes to make a big thing out of everything.
Oh, that's very funny, very funny. Another bit I can relate to was it's frankly not our problem. Besides, they already decided on continuing with web forms. Their fate is sealed. I've been there many times as well, so it's just there's so many parallels. I feel I need to stop reading out quotes now because I don't want to ruin it for the listeners. But
There are plenty of quotes. I think I can talk about the book for a few hours without revealing everything. Talking about the book, there will be an audio version. The voice actors told me should be done by late August, early September. The English audio book.
I must admit, after listening to you on the .NET Core podcast, I was quite disappointed that it wasn't you doing the audio. I think you'd have done such a good job.
No dialogue. Have you tried? It's really hard to do. I have so much respect for voice actors. I don't even call them narrators. Because it's when you do dialogue, and I don't use a lot of dialogue tags. Dialogue tags are he said, she murmured, he whispered. I don't do that. I have a little bit when needed, but usually I use formatting to indicate who's speaking, and then I might use like some sort of like action tags, like she took a sip of her coffee. Hey, what are you doing there? I don't know. I was just trying to come up with something. So you still know who's talking. But when you do the voice recording, when you do the audio, it's really hard because you need to do different voices because you don't have the formatting. So you don't have the visual aspect. And it's very difficult to do different voices without them sounding like caricatures and also maintaining them. And although I'm sure some people find my Swedish accent and mispronunciations sometimes charming, when you buy a professional product, you probably don't want it in there. So maybe I could do Leo's voice because she is Swedish, but it wouldn't go well with the other characters. And I've actually decided I was going to have a male narrator for the first few chapters, and then after the gender swap or the gender revelation, gender reveal, I would do a female narrator. But I decided on using a male narrator, although I really liked the female narrator I used for the sampler. I have a small audio sample on Spotify. I really, really liked her, but she speaks a little bit too fast, and the new guy I'm using is really good at differentiating between the characters because there's a fair bit of dialogue. So yeah.
I've listened to quite a lot of audiobooks, and regardless of whether it's a male or female narrator, some people are really good. As you say, they can differentiate between the characters. They can put a lot of emotion in it, and you want keep you tied and want you to listen. But then
I tried. I recorded myself, and I really tried hard. And I do a lot of speaking. I mean, I did a podcast every week for a year, and a lot of public speaking and so on. I did my very, very best, and then I had my husband listen to it, and he's like, who's who, And he's read the book. He says he's read the book. I don't know. He's read half the book or something. Yeah, but he couldn't. So it's like, no, it doesn't sound too good. And also with the first narrator, she had to record 3 times before I could hear the difference. And I mean, I wrote the book. I've read through the book at least 20 times. But that's one of the most difficult chapters. I think it's chapter 6 or something. The one I have on GitHub has a dialogue, and there's 3 people, and that's always a little bit difficult. And it was hard to decide whether I was thinking I should use a female narrator because it's a female main character. But unfortunately, the majority of my reader base is male, and men are less likely to want to use female narrators. So I ended up with a male narrator also because out of the ones I tried both female and male, and I was most happy with this guy, so I chose him. He does a lot of podcasts as well, actually. But I felt a little bit like a sellout because I chose a male narrator.
Well, I must admit personally, it's kind of, as a listener to audio books and podcasts, what you just said then about males would prefer to listen to a male narrator. I don't get that at all. And I don't know, I suppose sadly in our industry, it is mostly male dominated.
And it's unfortunate.
Yeah, very much so. And all day long, I'm speaking and working with males. So it's actually nice to actually listen to a female voice as well. So
personally, I don't have a preference. I listen to both male and female, but I'm quite new to listening to audiobooks. So maybe you get a preference after you sort of become a veteran. But I was also thinking that for me, it's very important that people read the book because I want to have more books with female main characters that aren't characters. It's like a realistic software developer. And if I want to reach out to as many as I can, a male narrator is actually going to help a little bit with that. I did a poll and it was overwhelmingly unanimous that a male a male narrator would be a better fit. However, the first time he sent me an audio sample and he did a female voice, we were sitting in the car, me and my husband, and we listened to it. Like, oh shit, he's good, he's really good. Then he did the female voice and we just looked at each other like, oh God, no, what is that even? Like, sounded like such a bad, like, yeah, no, it was really bad. So I wrote back to him, was like, can we do it without, like, just drop the gender thing from all the characters. Just do unique voices and don't... She was like, talking like this. I was like, that is not legal. I was like, nobody talks like that. I know it's a book, but that was like more towards theater. And I don't know if theater books are a thing, like where you like overly exaggerate voices. But even though it can be fun with like a small sample like that, I would get so tired listening to 9 hours of this or this. You know, like, no. Yeah.
I'm impressed with the voices you managed to do then anyway.
I don't think I'll be able to maintain it. And I'm saying the English version, I actually sold the rights for the book to a Korean company. So the book is now being translated to Korean.
Oh, wow.
That is so insane. Yeah, they reached out and I was like, you're kidding, right? No, what? For real? Korea, which part? Just kidding. Such a bad joke, obviously. So yeah, it's going to be translated to Korean.
Awesome.
And the money I'm getting for that, I've invested in the audiobook. That's why I haven't done the audiobook earlier, because it's super expensive to hire an actor.
So has writing a book, because I've been thinking about it, has that made you rich? Has it actually done the...
I'm not rich yet, but I've reached my goals. My first goal was to sell 150 books, which is the average an author sells over the book's lifetime. So I got that almost within the first month. It's like, oh, this is going really well. 100 books was it. And then the second goal was 150 books, because then I would cover my expenses. I have an editor, proofreader, designer, and all that, and it adds up. And then my third goal was to sell at least 250 books. And after that, I didn't have any more goals because I didn't think I'd get that far. But I've hit all my goals and it's going really well. So, yeah. If I didn't invest the money in the audiobook, I could at least take out a minimum wage for the amount of hours I've spent writing the book. I'm just going to see. I have a note here how many hours I spent writing the book. See if I can find it.
So wait, are you that performance guy in your interview that's tapping the start and stop?
No, so it's sort of like an estimate. I know my writing speed and how much time I spent on revisions. But what takes time is the break in between, because you need to pause and also the third and the fourth time you read your own stuff, like, oh, you get slightly nauseous. So it goes slower. Like revisions, more and more time, because everybody hates reading their own stuff. I'm assuming, or maybe it's just me.
I think everyone's different. I think like a lot of people hate listening to their own voice with recordings. That took me quite a long time to get used to. I still don't enjoy it, but I've kind of got to do. And then writing, I'm not that bad writing, actually. I don't mind reading my own writing.
All right, here are the numbers. So I spent 12 hours planning the book. I'm a planner, or a plotter. So every single scene, everything was planned ahead. So I like a massive Excel document with like 12 tabs with everything that's going to happen, all the jokes and so on. Writing the first draft after the planning took about 30 hours total. Obviously, this is spread out over a couple of years. Come on, I was pregnant and had a baby and stuff. First revision took 13 hours. And revising the beta readers' notes. So I hire beta readers, and that took a couple of hours. Third revision, 9 hours. Editor revision, second editor revision, final formatting, ideal reader revision, and so on. Cover, publishing, blog post, Instagram, email. A total of 120 hours. Doesn't sound like a lot, does it?
That's not actually too bad. I was expecting...
I'm very efficient. Like when I work, I work.
Even with the kids, that's impressive.
Yeah. Yeah, but you know what? If I was to hire people, I'd probably just hire like toddler parents, because you become so efficient. You're like, oh, I have half an hour before the kid wakes up. I'm going to do laundry, I'm going to clean the house, oil change, like you get so much more efficient. Like before I would go like, 2 hours, I'm not going to get anything done. Sit down on the couch, scroll through Instagram or something. But now, like getting half an hour, 1 hour, that's gold. I can do so much without 1 hour.
Yeah, that's totally true. I think back to before kids, and I'm thinking, why didn't I? Like, all that time, I could have started the next Facebook. It's like,
yeah, you know,
what did I do with all that time?
I was bored. I was talking to my friend. When's the last time you were bored? I'm never bored. I never have time to be bored. I miss being bored. It just never happens. It's like I got free time, like in air quotes, free time. Oh, just look at your list, all the things you were supposed to do. I'm never bored, and I miss being bored. So for the people at home being bored, I envy you deeply. It was a choice to get kids, though, so I'm not complaining.
I'm with you, but I personally wouldn't change it for the world. So.
Yeah.
This morning I was at my eldest sports day, and just seeing him do that, like how happy they all were and running around, I wouldn't change it for the world. So it sounds like we're a bit complaining about kids, but it is the best thing ever.
Yeah, but I mean, it's okay to complain. Like,
it's part of our job, isn't it?
It is. I'm a professional complainer. That's what I do as a software developer as well. You see something, you improve it. There's always a little bit of complaining, but it's always like tongue in cheek. So it's not, you don't mean it in a bad or harmful way, you know. I love my job, but I also like complaining about it.
It's on my CV, professional complainer.
Indeed.
So looking at my other bits of notes I took as I was reading the book, there was one thing that was spoken about estimation called walk to measure. And I hadn't actually heard of this term before.
Walk to measure is just a way to estimate stories. And basically you say, if this story was, and then you walk a couple of steps, then how big would this story be related to that story? So then you, for example, walk a few more steps, or as in the book, you walk to the end of the hallway and use the bathroom there and just never return. And it just started because we used to use t-shirt sizes, and then we started talking about, isn't that a little bit body shaming because we didn't have enough t-shirt sizes, and we always try to aim for small t-shirt sizes, you know, and that's not nice. People using bigger t-shirts, and you might be a small person wanting to use a big t-shirt, so that doesn't make any sense, or a big person squeezing into a small t-shirt. So just we couldn't take the t-shirt sizes serious anymore, so we decided to use the walk to measure. But in the book, I just made it seem like HR was having problems with using t-shirt sizes for measurement. And I thought it's a bit funny with agile methods how you often use like sort of like this absurd childlike games, sort of trying to not gamify everything, but try everything to make it sort of as a child's game, and it almost becomes a little bit ridiculous, and you have to memorize all these different things. But what everybody does in turn, like in their head, is recalculate this to time. It's like everywhere I've worked, like t-shirt sizes, cards, or colors, or whatever.
Or story points.
Yeah, or story points. They go like, and what was like 2 story points was 3 hours, right? At the end of this, we always end up with the deadline anyway, because time is something everybody can relate to. So yeah, but walk to measure is a thing, and it's good to do if people have if they really have no idea how big of an effort something is. You go like, well, this was 2 steps, and then you just start walking and stop when they feel like it. So yeah.
But then, what's the person's leg length like? That depends, or
yeah.
But it's funny. I've worked with so many different companies, and the amount of time this exact conversation has sapped from most of those companies, because it just feels like the industry needs to agree on one of them, and we can just then move on. But
everybody wants to be cool, you know. Do you remember like when we stopped being software developers and we were, this is in the next book, like, we're your code ninjas, your keyboard magicians, you know. It's like I'm pretty sure I'm just coding, I'm just typing code, you know. Computer reads, executes, but we're just trying to make it so cool and mysterious. We have guilds, we have tribes, we have, you know, we have meetings.
that reminds me, I'll share it in the show notes, a YouTube video. There's probably a lot like this, but I always go back and watch it because it's so funny. But it's this guy on a computer, and it shows like how he thinks he codes and reality.
Oh yes.
And how he codes is like everything's dark, there's lights flashing everywhere on his screen. Do you know like the movies where you've got code flashing around everywhere and he's typing at supersonic speed? He's got shades on as well, and it's just like everything's cool. And then it stops and it goes to reality, and it's like it just shows him typing really slow. He swears and then finds Goop like Stack Overflow, and it's all really, and it's just there's no background music to that one, and it's just I can't do it justice, but I'll include that in the show notes.
And on the screen, just like a red squiggly, and it's like an IntelliSense error.
Yes, that's the one.
And I say, there's a lot of that in the next book when Leo is studying programming, and there is one chapter. And this happened at work not long ago. I was on maternity leave and I came back and I had like 2,000 errors. And they go like, oh yeah, don't include IntelliSense. And I was like, okay, why? No, just yeah, we ignore those. So I was like, okay. So then I only had 200 errors left. And go like, well, just exclude these 2 assemblies from the project. That solved it for me. I was like, what do they do? I was like, I don't know, but it removed the errors. And I was like, okay, I get. And this has happened so many times. Like people go like, treat warnings as errors. And then how do we treat them? We ignore them. So, yeah, always mistreat them, yeah.
Yeah, well, I think when you get so many warnings, then a real warning is just ignored just as much as the other ones. But
yeah, exactly.
I was afraid of mentioning about the treat warnings as I was thinking, because that's what I always push people to do, but I might accidentally end up in the next book, so...
Oh, it's already in there, along with starting up Visual Studio, running an update, and then having to take half a day from work while you wait for an update to finish.
I feel like we're giving too much away in these books, and I guess we are kind of running out of time. We did mention at the start about dev picks. Oh, the glistening scats of your face at the moment. I know at the start we were a bit unsure whether we were going to do them or not.
Yeah, I haven't. I can't. No, I have a lot of favorite developers, but I can't come up with one. Can I get back to you on that one?
You can. We can edit it in. I'll briefly do my dev tip, and this is a library called Fluxor, because a big project I'm working on at the moment is using Blazor, and one of the team members has recently introduced Fluxor to it, and he did a demo actually yesterday at the time of recording, and it's basically the Redux pattern but for Blazor, and it plugs into the Redux Chrome dev extension, which I've used for a React project in the past, which is amazing. So just knowing that we can have this in Blazor is awesome. So I will include that in the show notes. I know that's not related to the topic today, but I thought it was worth calling out.
Okay, I have a dev pick. I don't have a name. Somebody at GitLab, when the whole mess went down and they live streamed their awesome recovery process, it would be actually great to talk to somebody about that. So if you were to manage to get an interview with one of them, that would be awesome.
Oh, yes.
I'd love to hear their stories, because they did a lot of like fun games, like would you rather fight 200 cats or I don't know what, but like they were streaming like 24/7 for a couple of days, and it was really fun. So somebody from GitLab.
So was that actually recorded?
Yeah, it was.
Oh wow!
It was sent. The YouTube videos should still be up because it was streamed on YouTube.
Nice. I'll try and dig those up and.
So the recovery was recorded, not
yes, not the
not the incident. That would be a little bit suspicious, wouldn't it? Yeah. Oh, I accidentally recorded myself wiping the service. How could that happen? Follow me.
Well, there's so many things like that on YouTube where. Why was that particular accident recorded and then...
Yeah.
Cool. So, well, before we wrap up, first of all the listeners, go out and buy the book. It is absolutely awesome, and it's such a good, fun, light-hearted read. I really enjoyed it, so yeah, I definitely recommend doing that. And where's the best place for the listeners to reach out for you if they've got any questions?
Well, either on Twitter, which is Iris Classon. That's all my social media accounts. That's usually the best place. Or you can send me an email at book@irisclasson.com.
Cool. And I'll include a link to all those in the show notes as well. So with that, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. I've had so much fun recording this.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone for listening. A quick reminder that this podcast is sponsored by Everstack, which is my own company, providing software development and consultation services. For more information, visit everstack.com. And if you're enjoying the podcast, please do help me spread the word on social media. I normally use the hashtag #unhandledexception, and I can be found on Twitter @Drakan, and my DMs are open. My blog, danclark.com, has links to all my social stuff too. And we'll include links to all the stuff we've mentioned today, including the book, of course, which can be found on unhandledexceptioncast.com.
One. It is said that you can tell a lot about a person by the way they live. Possessions, however many or few, are tied to one's identity, like deliberate statements describing who you are. After all, no matter where your life takes you, home is where you return, unless you are drunk and confused. It's a memory box, with bits and pieces sampled from your life, past and present, with your personality written on the walls. Metaphorically, of course, unless you are a toddler with a pen. But no sane person would leave a toddler unattended with a pen. Some memory boxes are rather empty, with white boring walls, and the absence of memorabilia signifying either a person with a less than exciting life, or a person that has yet to explore the wonders of life. Leo Larson lives in an apartment, perfect for one, tiny for two. An excuse or a choice? Maybe both. It's located on the second floor of a beautiful traditional British apartment building in Kensington. A pale yellow brick house from the Georgian era with a square meter well-kept garden and slippery marble stairs. A breathtaking building for a visitor, breathtaking for other reasons if you were a resident. Let's just say that some period homes weren't damp-proof, and mold was to be considered a long-lived pet. Nonetheless, the building was magnificent and full of personality, in contrast to Leo's apartment. Leo's hallway consisted of a plastic chair, the collapsible kind, a metal coat rack with 2 jackets, denim and rain jacket, and 3 pairs of shoes, all white sneakers differing only by the number of scuff marks and dust. The living room, an extension of the hallway, was equally empty, with a 2-seat couch in sun-bleached gray linen, a square black coffee table with several cups of old coffee now resembling petri dishes, a small LED TV on a white TV stand, blackout curtains in dark blue, and a framed map over London Underground in the kitchen corner next to a tall closet where Leo's life was neatly folded, consisting of a t-shirt and jeans combination for any event. Practical clothes that would make Grandma proud. The walls were dusty, but clean, white. Wooden floor, no wall-to-wall carpet, a criminal offense in Britain. This was a part of Leo's personality. The boring bits. The other bits, rarely shared, was the pile of books in the corner, eagerly read and deeply loved. The old wine fridge filled to the brim with fine wines, next to a sourdough starter waiting for its weekly bake. The cacti collection in the kitchen next to the hydroponic basil assortment, and a pile of moving boxes containing personal diaries from Leo's life and therapy. All of this could easily be overlooked and hidden in the sheer emptiness of the apartment. The few times Leo had visitors, they would ask if Leo had recently moved in and suggested places to buy furniture. But Leo had lived there for almost a decade, which sounds like a long time, but apartments in London are hard to find and bloody expensive to move between. Something you just don't do, and besides, Leo was not the exploratory, moving around type. Interior design had never been Leo's strength, which was very likely the result of an utter lack of interest in all things concerning design. The apartment had arrived in flat packages, courtesy of IKEA, a tribute to Leo's motherland, Sweden. The Allen key puzzles had been assembled without instructions, but with the help of 5 beers, a cat, and Indian takeaway, the only edible British food there is. Most of the apartment had been put together from a practical perspective, like a temporary home for an elderly person that would trip on carpets or get confused by decorative items. There had been no parties, get-togethers, or late-night romances, and consequently, the apartment was spotless, pure, and the perfect meditative retreat for a tired consultant, according to Leo. The only part of the apartment that didn't look like a successful office furniture yard sale was the corner in the living room. Behold, the home office, a majestic wild cherry desk with perfectly rounded corners, polished to perfection and calmly reflecting the dim light from the living room window. Featured in the space, the magnificent, curved computer monitor framed with tropical plants resting their leaves against the silvery frame. A treasure hidden in a tropical forest. To match the screen, a beautiful backlit WASD keyboard, intimately resting on the desk, with its lights and shadows serenading the computer with clicks and clacks of love. The keys? Cherry MX, blue of course, the perfect sound, tactile feel, and resistance for a truly immersive experience, for long nights creating metaphorical music, whispering commands in a dark editor, anything but VIM or CLI. The keyboard's companion? A heavy but delicate and delightful gaming mouse. A magical wand for the magician, for those rare occasions. In the corner, a wide selection of other keyboards and mice, for the collector that can never be truly satisfied. Next to the desk, a silent and cool computer tower, hard at work, an unbelievable ergonomic chair that required 3 YouTube videos to figure out how to use. Totally worth it. And the lone couch, with one permanent empty seat, reflecting its sadness on the wooden floor, next to a coffee machine and a cat tower for the commander-in-chief. And if one could measure how much a person loved their cat by the height of a cat tower, then Lion the cat was loved from floor to ceiling, regardless of his tenacity for asshole-like behavior, exuding the stigma of cats everywhere. Assholery aside, cats were, according to Leo, smart, intuitive, independent, and graceful, often better company than human beings. Cats had all the desirable traits humans could possess, but were rarely found combined. Unfortunately, Leo's workplace did not share the same appreciation for felines, and the cat was not allowed in the office. Thus, Lion watched on as Leo did an armpit check, scratch and sniff, confirmed the t-shirt could be worn another day, and put on the jeans that had spent the night curled on the floor. With the questionable outfit assembled, Leo marked all emails and messages as read, sans reading them, and let the team know Leo was almost there, ignoring the time it would take to get to the train and then to work. After verifying that no neighbors were in the stairwell, Leo snuck out like a pantless lover in the night, rushing to the entrance where Mary's letterbox was waiting. Holding the wrinkly letters in one hand and laptop bag in the other, Leo ran up the marble stairs, 2 at a time, all the way to the top, where the musty and dusty smell lingered by Mary's door. The mail was dropped by the door, where the senior citizen Rapunzel Mary was held captive by bad hips and evil marble stairs, and Leo darted down the stairs silently, celebrating successful avoidant behavior. And just like that, Leo disappeared like a ninja in the night, late for one of those rare trains to Peterborough. Almost there. Yes, of course I read the messages. That, of course, was a lie.